stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth.
I need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
I'm going to stop calling this a war on Christmas, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not, this is no longer going to be a war on Christmas. This is a war on Christ. I mean, what's the first part? What's the first syllable in Christmas? It's Christ. I mean, the reason it is offensive is because his name is in the title of this holiday.
But why are you messing around with my tradition? Why are you messing around with Christmas? Just leave it alone. You and your merry band of fascists.
Fascists.
Right? Yeah.
Fascists.
You get it revoked.
You call me a fascist.
Absolutely.
I am a patriot, sir. I am a patriot who's taking the craziest notion that everybody in this country is equal and that the government has to treat everybody fairly.
Therefore,
That's
they should
fascism.
banish Christmas trees.
I did not say banish Christmas trees.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Saturday, December 8th War on Christmas episode of The Infidel Show. You can find us coming live to you from youtube.com/The Infidel Show, where you can ask the panel questions and give us your feedback during the show by commenting under the live stream. Tonight on the show, we have Tim from the Atheist Bible Commentary, and our special sit-in co-host, Kyle, from United Atheists of America, myself, Ryan, from Hammer the Gods, and our two special guests this evening, Brian from PA, Brian Fields from PA Non-Believers, and Kat from We Fucking Love Atheism, and don't we? So I'll toss it over to you, Tim, for our topics this evening.
Well, we're going to talk about, of course, the war on Christmas, and I figured I might let Brian also talk about some of the things that we've been involved with here in PA as atheists, as far as the year of the Bible, and I think there was the month of prayer, was it, Brian?
October Prayer Month, HR 922.
And some of the different issues that he deals with his organization in Pennsylvania, and then in the second hour, we're going to keep talking about the war on Christmas and talk about. Let's see, we've got Sean Flaircloth from about his book Attack of the Theocrats. Oklahoma judge defends sentencing of teenager to church, even if it's not legal. Some separation of church and state issues, and we'll start off by going to Brian here. Brian, you're muted. You'll need to unmute yourself to talk. So what exactly does PA Non-Believers do?
Well, we're Central Pennsylvania's largest group of atheists, agnostics, secularists, humanists, heathens. We do a lot of. We work with a lot of local residents to handle church-state violations. We get national organizations involved when there are issues. Organizations like the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the American Atheists, the ACLU, Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. They get involved with, we don't have a lot of money, so, we rely on them for legal help and things like that. But a lot of times when we run into issues, even a strongly worded letter reminding people of what the law is, it does help. So we do that as well.
Like your friend, the mayor of Harrisburg?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting story. But yeah, we have protested the mayor. We've invited her to our events, and so there's a wonderful dichotomy there. But
yeah, I remember she showed up at the conference this past the PA Atheist Conference and mentioned God about 600 times.
Yeah, but it showed up in the newspaper the next day, which gave us a boost in attendance, which was great. So Also, any atheist group that wants to hold a conference should consider inviting their local government representatives, whether no matter what side of the aisle they're on or what side of the issues they're on. One of the issues that we have as secularists is the fact that we're allowed to be invisible in society. The people ignore us. They think that what we have to say isn't important. And anytime we can involve government entities in what we're doing, it gets people to take notice, and that's always important.
No, we've had a few things happen in here in PA that have gotten national attention lately. First we'll get into the war on Christmas in a little bit here, but why don't you tell us about what happened with the Year of the Bible and that whole fiasco that went down there?
Well, in January, late January of last year, the General Assembly of Pennsylvania put up a bill. They put it up, I think it was on a Tuesday, and then voted on a Wednesday. That was a resolution declaring 2012 the Year of the Bible. Now, the way this was put up is using a mechanism in the General Assembly called Rule 35. And what Rule 35 is designed to do is to allow the legislature to do things like naming bridges and praising football teams and stuff like that without going through the full mechanism of making a bill and getting it through the General Assembly. What they do is they get the approval of the minority leader and the Speaker of the House, and as long as they can get the approval of the top levels of the House, then they put it forward on the floor, and there's a gentleman's agreement that anything that comes through under Rule 35, which is also called non-controversial resolutions, is approved with a handshake, a wink, and a nod. And because they're really not supposed to have a legal effect other than just to recognize people in the community. But what happened with the Year of the Bible is that certain representatives decided to use the General Assembly to use religion in government speech. And that's exactly what the Year of the Bible was. And it passed unanimously, but afterwards, one representative spoke up, Representative Mark Cohen, and said he got a lot of complaints in his district. His district is mainly non-Christian. And there were a lot of complaints in his district about, hey, what have you voted on? And so he spoke up, and he decided that he was going to try to recall the resolution. And so they went to he went to do that the resolution to recall the resolution didn't pass. So we in Pennsylvania were stuck with the Year of the Bible. But he did hold a press conference. Another representative, a wonderful lady from Philadelphia, Babette Josephs, she also shared the stage about the Year of the Bible, trying to recall the resolution. But she was voted out of office this year, so we won't be seeing her again in the General Assembly. But so that was the Year of the Bible. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. There was a lot of press on it, but when push came to shove, it's still the law of the land.
Wasn't there a court case where the judge didn't knock it down, but he basically chastised them for doing it? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, the FFRF filed suit later in the year. I think they filed suit in March, and a decision was heard in early October, challenging the legitimacy of the Year of the Bible. And they did that by suing directly the House leadership over this resolution. The problem is that there is a principle called legislative immunity. And what that means is that essentially if legislators are doing their job the way they're passing bills and so on and so forth, they're essentially immune from being directly sued over the contents of the bills they produce, whether they're legal or not. They can't be sued for it. But in the close of the judge's decision, he had some pretty scathing remarks, and I'll pull them up. I'll have them ready in just a moment. But
well, that was Rich.
Ready.
Now, this was Rick Saccone that introduced this originally, right? Representative Rick Saccone.
Yes.
And he also introduced the second one, the month of prayer.
No, actually, that was introduced by Representative Angel Cruz, who's a Democrat.
Oh, okay.
Which, some people may find that surprising.
No, I don't. I know it happens all the time.
Yeah. But
it looks like U.S. Middle District Judge Christopher C. Connor.
Correct.
Emphasized, however, the decision, as you said, is to grant immunity should not be viewed as judicial endorsement for this resolution. It most certainly is not. He goes on to say, at worst, the Bible resolution is premeditated pandering designed to provide a re-election soundbite for use by members of the General Assembly. And he says he called the resolution's language proselytizing and exclusionary. And he said the measure pushes the envelope of the separation of church and state.
Correct. And actually he goes on to say that the court's disapprobation is directed to the blatant use of legislative resources in the contravention of the spirit, if not the letter, of the Establishment Clause. It was a pretty powerful rebuke. It shouldn't be looked at as a loss, even though it was thrown out on technical terms. The fact is, the court recognized that the year of the Bible was blatantly violating the intentions of the separation of church and state.
It was intentional too, because this Representative Saccone, I've met him before, and I've seen him speak, and I know where he stands. He's one of those people that believes we're a Christian nation, and he believes that they need to assert that in legislation and in any way they can. He was deliberately doing this to provoke the debate on his side that we're a Christian nation and that there is no separation of church and state as far as the Constitution is concerned, and that our laws are based on the Ten Commandments. He's one of those people that believes all that stuff, right. And that's why he did it.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was on television pretty much crowing about the year of the Bible being a victory for religion and all that. He was going on and on about that. He makes no bones about that he did exactly what he intended to do.
So when you're talking about, we'll go from this now to the war on Christmas. When you're talking about deliberate actions by religion to put religion or a specific religion, show favoritism to it in law or through action of public officials, then you have that situation. Then you have what they're saying is a war on Christmas, where people are being asked not to put religious displays on public property, government endorsement of religion, things like that, and they're crying foul because we're asking them to just keep their religion out of the public sector and in the private sector, in their churches and their homes. And now maybe we can get feedback from anybody on this, but what's the problem with that? What's the problem with a Christmas tree on a courthouse lawn?
Well, actually, most of the cases that I've seen put up by most groups that I'm aware of aren't actually really fighting to actively remove religion from the public square. Most of them are working very hard to inject atheism into the public square. That if we're going to have a religious message on the courthouse lawn, then that courthouse lawn should be open to any group which fits the criteria for public displays on the courthouse lawn to post whatever they like. And so our group actually a couple of years ago had a case in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, where we did exactly that. We went to the community and said, you guys have a nativity scene every year in the public square, and they have a large traffic circle right in the middle of town. And on one side of the traffic circle, they had their nativity scene. And what we said was, we want to put up our display 90 degrees opposite of this nativity scene. so that and because it's a war memorial, the criteria for that memorial said it must be related in some way to war. Now, a nativity scene is not related to war, but we wanted to play by the rules as they're written before arguing about them breaking the rules. Let's try to play by the rules. Let's do what's asked of us in the proper way. So we went and we said something to the effect of honoring atheist soldiers this solstice season. Very benign message. You know, it's not offensive at all. We members of our organization went to the borough council meeting. We presented our request. They knew that we were coming. Right after our request was made, they said they denied the request and said that it was moot because what they're going to do is they're going to shut down the circle to all displays.
Huh.
And did they follow through and do that?
They did follow through and do that. They had the nativity scene moved to the nearby church, where really it belongs.
Yeah.
But we also made a PHRC complaint because they had been violating, or they'd been doing that for 30 years. They had been going out and putting out a nativity scene for 30 years, and we thought...
And can you just clarify for us, please, the PHRC complaint?
I'm sorry, Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Anytime you have any kind of discrimination complaint, the PHRC attempts to mediate the complaint to free up the courts. And then what happens is the PHRC can refuse to hear it or deny the complaint, and then you still have a court case. But it's an attempt to prevent the courts from getting swamped by discrimination complaints. So in Pennsylvania, it's pretty common in Pennsylvania. So we went to the PHRC with our complaint. They denied the complaint. I don't know if it expired yet. It was pretty close. Our appeal window was pretty close to expiring. Some of the reason why I'm hedging on that is because it wasn't just Pennsylvania nonbelievers that was a party to that case. There were other parties to that case who have not decided yet whether they're going to appeal. If it's not expired, we still exercise the right to do that. So, but at this point in time, really, they have kept to no display at all. So, but the problem is that we get hit pretty hard in the press when that happens. We get accused of wanting to shut down, remove the cross, remove religion from the public square. The same thing is happening with American Atheists and the World Trade Center cross. They wanted to go and they wanted to put another religion's display. They didn't even say an atheist display. They said they would pay to have everything done, and the case is being fought over whether they can have permission to put in another installation other than the cross, which was identified in the wreckage, pulled up, straightened. They brought a priest in to come in and bless it. It was obviously a religious display. And
yeah. Well, let's.
Now, do you guys have any sort of public relations to sort of get the public in the community to understand that what your intent is not to remove all religious displays, but to be able to share the public space equally?
Well, since we don't have a whole lot of money, we have the sound bites we can get in the media, pretty much as our public relations. But yeah, we do work very hard to get that message out there as much as we can.
Okay.
Do we want to play the Jon Stewart clip real quick before we go in any further here, and then, or do we want to skip that?
Let's go for War on Christmas there with Jon Stewart.
Okay.
Yeah, as you're queuing that up. Oh, here we go.
Got a good one for you tonight. Dennis Leary is going to be on the program, author of the new... Okay. All right, so we're done. Let's see if we can put that all together, shall we?
Atheists seem to have ended a 60-year-old Christmas tradition in Santa Monica, California.
A federal judge backing Santa Monica's decision to no longer allow nativity scenes in a public park.
Oh my God, that is such an out. It's as though the war on Christmas has become a rote observance, devoid of all its original spiritual meaning. Even its most ardent proponents have seen doubt creep in.
Now, a lot of people, for whatever reason, will look at this interview today and they'll say, Gretchen Carlson and Doreen Costa are nuts, okay? They're so nuts because they think that there's this made-up war on Christmas. We're not nuts, are we? There is a war on Christmas.
As a general rule, if you're trying to tell whether you and one other person are nuts, ask a third person. Preferably someone outside the asylum. But since you asked the question, am I nuts to think there's a war on Christmas, it's only polite for me to offer you a resounding, yes, you're nuts. Because for whatever annoying, local, ticky-tack, Christmas-abolishing story you and your merry band of persecution-seeking researchers can scour the wires to turn up, the rest of us can't swing a dead elf without knocking over an inflatable snow globe or a giant blinking candy cane. For God's sakes! Fox News itself is located in Midtown Manhattan, the epicenter of all that is godless, secular, gay, Jewy, and hellbound. And yet, even here, all around your studio, it looks like Santa's balls exploded.
It did.
That is a hypothesis. You know, in the old days, before the war on Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Christ lasted a day, like birthdays do. And then it seeped into the night before Christmas, the eve, if you will. And then the next thing you know, we were riding this thing all the way to Epiphany. Fine, 12 days. Gave time for lords to leap and geese to lay and partridges to pair and gold to ring. And it's just 12 days of servants and poultry, whatever. But it still wasn't enough. There's a war on Christmas? Has anyone told Thanksgiving? Because this year, Black Friday, a.k.a. Christmas's opening bell, got moved back a day to Black Thursday, or as we used to call it, Thanksgiving. Christmas is so big now, it's eating other holidays. Watch your ass, Halloween, you're next.
That's already happening, I think.
Let me ask you a question. Do atheists land an occasional blow? I guess. Even the Washington Generals get lucky once in a while. But when you look at the overall record between the two teams, for God's sakes, there are radio stations that play nothing but Christmas carols. Stores that sell nothing but Christmas decorations all year long. There is a TV channel devoted to a Yule log. And it's kicking CNN's ass in the ring. But don't worry. Don't worry, non-log burning channels. There's Christmas programs for you as well. There's old-timey, traditional Christmas programming. Really old-timey, Dickensian Christmas special programming. New-timey, hey, 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 urban Christmas specials. Mormon Christmas specials. Country Western Christmas specials. Chipmunk Christmas specials. Otter Christmas specials, bear Christmas specials, cat Christmas specials, large-headed child Christmas, gay Christmas, Jewish Christmas, whatever the this is Christmas, Christmas underwater, Christmas from the future, prehistoric Christmas. That's right, there's a Christmas special celebrating Jesus' birth thousands of years before the birth of Jesus.
Okay. I think we get the idea there. This war on Christmas is I mean, like what we were at my mom's house last year for Christmas, and I brought up to her the fact that the only Christian symbol for Christmas is the nativity. The Christmas tree, everything else that you have are all pagan symbols. And she didn't like that too much, and it caused a fight, which caused my sister to leave and me to go home early. I mean,
I would like to touch on that, but Brian wanted to answer somebody in the chat room. Go ahead, Brian.
There was a question from one of the YouTube chat people that said, I know it may not be popular, but shouldn't the goal be to remove all of it? And the answer is perhaps, but the goal here isn't to go after what's popular, but to try and be successful. If we have two goals here. The first goal here is let's not make atheists invisible. Let's not make atheists hide in the closet. And the more we avoid situations where we're able to, where we don't get who we are and what we think and what we believe out in the public square, the more invisible we are. So taking the opportunity to address the fact that Christians have been monopolizing their majority is a good thing. So going after the fact that they're doing this and is a good thing, but also taking the opportunity to say, hey, we're here and this is what we think, that's a good thing too. So we don't want to miss that opportunity to speak to the general public about us, because the more we remain invisible, the more the Christian majority is able to get away with stuff.
Well, I think it's... So, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it's important to point out where they're trying to acquire this special privilege, but also point out the difference between atheism, secularists, and secularism. Right. Because a lot of times those are conflated, and that really causes a clash, that misunderstanding about atheists and secularism, and
Well, a purely secularist view might say, well, okay, let's just get everything out of the public square. The government shouldn't be involved in religion at all. Let's not do anything. Let's make sure that they get out of the public square. That makes the level playing field. And it's not an invalid viewpoint. I think that's a fairly reasonable view.
That's my viewpoint. Why should the government be involved with this stuff? I mean, they've gotten it to the point where now they've just they had this privilege for so many years, because nobody said anything, and it's a direct violation of the law in many cases, some of the stuff they're doing, and they're upset because somebody's finally holding them accountable.
Yeah, I want to toss two thoughts in there and then throw it off to Kyle. Is bloody hell, what the hell was it? We're running on zero sleep here.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Kyle. I might pick it up.
Well, I think regarding whether it should be removed from the public square, totally shouldn't inherently be the goal. It'll probably be the end result if the campaigns are successful for the fair play. But that's where their whole privilege thing comes from. Is they've been playing by their own rules, not the rules we actually have. And now that people are making them play by the rules, they're crying persecution when it's just more equality. And when it comes to the public displays, if like the one in PA where they're not doing it now, and then there's one in Santa Monica where last year they did a lottery system for 14 slots, and of those 14, 11 atheists won 11 of them. And so this year, instead of doing anything with the nativity, they are closing it all down. And it should either be all or nothing, because they can't, otherwise it's an endorsement. So everybody has to either be given a shot or none at all, which is why I think in the end it would be none at all, because as you can see from recent history, as important as the Christmas holiday is and the birth of Christ is supposed to be to them, as much as it's supposed to inspire them, their faith, they cannot stand having anybody else in the public light. And so they will put themselves in the closet before they let anybody else come out.
Right, and I think it plays very well. I mean, if you're gonna talk about press and how you present yourself, it plays very well to say, hey, we're trying to get equal rights. We're not trying to kill Christmas. We're trying to get equal representation. So that does play well in the public square, and it's there's a moral position to say, hey, look, it is fair, and so I prefer the approach of getting us into the public square. I like to trumpet the term atheism. I want to normalize the word atheism, and the more you can get it out in the public square, the more it can get normalized, and the more we can be accepted in society. And you look at the way the gay rights groups have done it, how the civil rights groups have done it. That's what they did. They had to normalize these terms that historically were considered taboo or dangerous to society. So I think it's very important to get our message out there. That's why I'm in favor of sharing the public space.
Well, Kat, what do you think? Do you think there's a war on Christmas?
No, there's not a war on Christmas. That's just silly.
I have not yet begun to fight.
I enjoy Christmas. I like Christmas trees. I like Christmas presents. I find it a secular holiday. I don't put any religious meaning into it at all. I don't see why we have to. If they want to put religious things out, do it in their front yard. Do it at their church. But it doesn't have to be in public square.
I think somebody needs to ask the question, why does government even have to be involved with this to begin with? What's the role of government in celebrating holidays? Why do they have to be even? Why do you need a nativity display on the courthouse lawn?
That's a libertarian.
See, I think the more old-fashioned concept of separation is more like no favoritism among religions. But now that atheists have a greater voice, it's more like not playing religion against non-religion either. It's neutral on the entire question of religion, and not just, okay, we're not playing favorites. And I want to, what I was thinking of a moment ago, Brian, and I think this would be a good question for you, is do you see that there's two sort of distinct different types of secularism, separationism and accommodationalism, and that we're moving in politics more toward accommodationalism?
I think that, I agree that the position of government should be neutral on religion. That government should not be advocating or hindering religion any more than it advocates any other individual or group. So for me, that would mean, okay, tax corporations. You tax the religious corporation. You tax the nonprofits. It makes sense to me. But when you talk about the public square and you talk about free speech, remember that the situation in Chambersburg was that the public square was a public forum, and there was a private group that was putting the nativity scene up in a public forum. And what we were talking about there was not that particular community paying for a religious display. We're talking about a public forum that was being used by a private group, and therefore in that situation other private groups should be having the same access to the space with reasonable considerations.
Sure.
When they denied us our sign, they told us that the reason they were denying our sign is because they didn't want more odious groups, and I'm quoting, more odious groups like the KKK or NAMBLA putting up.
That we're the KKK now.
Yeah. Well, they said we were less odious than the KKK, and I wasn't.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and considering the KKK are Christians, I mean,
you're not as bad as the KKK, but
but here's the thing. I went back to talking about normalizing the word atheist. This is why I think it's important to normalize the word atheist. When we're seen in the same class of groups as the KKK and NAMBLA, there's a lot of public relations work we need to do. We can't ignore the fact that that this is considered acceptable.
Right. Yeah. Atheists are not on par with North American Man-Boy Love Association. I believe that's the acronym, is it not?
Yeah.
I went to. I'm sure you're familiar with them, Brian. The Christian Coalition debates.
And
they had one for our commissioners at one of the local churches, And I will name him out loud. Joel Long, a sitting commissioner in Clinton County, said in front of an audience of churchgoers and Christians that he did not think atheists were fit for public office because they didn't have any morals and didn't have anyone to pray to guide them morally. Therefore, they should not hold public office.
That just blows my mind that they always come back to the whole atheists don't have morality. Like, how many atheists do you see going to prison for these horrible crimes that we apparently do all the time because we have no God saying, hey, don't go rape that person. That's bad. Bad, bad, bad.
It cracks me up because I see the exact opposite side of that coin. You know, it reminds me of Mitt Romney during the last election. There was I think it was an old bishop friend of his, a good friend of the family, who said that he knew Mitt Romney for coming to a rational conclusion on something and then praying about this decision and then changing his mind after prayer. So he's coming to a rational conclusion and then prayer changes his mind. To me, that is exactly the kind of person that I don't want. If you have an imaginary voice in your head that's overruling your rational conclusion, I would rather have a reasonable, non-believer in office than somebody who's getting messages from Zulu on planet whatever.
It was always scary to me when on a personal level, when George Bush was in office, and he would talk about hearing God's direction and having his finger on the nuclear trigger. That always caused me to not sleep well. When I thought about that.
And that's something else. It's these people in power, they hold the keys to the army and to the nuclear arsenal and to all these dangerous weapons, and they're the ones that believe that if they die, it won't matter because they're all going to heaven. I would rather have an atheist in charge of the nuclear button because, holy crap, this is all I get. I don't want to launch this because then I'm going to die too. It brings about more rational debate when this is all you have.
Yeah, all this stuff that this discrimination is based off of this misconceptions that are portrayed by Christians, which is what irritates me when they say we're the ones that are attacking them. We're just defending ourselves is what we're doing. They've been on the attack. Their Bible says we're fools. A fool says in his heart there's no God. Their own religious texts mock us and make fun of us, and yet we poke fun at religion or we demand equal treatment and we're the bad guys.
It's not. And it's funny because I see often that we're not just defending ourselves. We're talking about defending the separation of church and state. That doesn't just defend us. That defends everybody. And that's what upsets me more than anything else when they talk about us trying to get special rights or something like. No, we're trying to protect the country. We're trying to defend the laws that already exist so that the majority does not trample on the rights of all minorities, not just atheists. So, how many other groups are? There are a few out there, but really, how many religious groups are out there saying, "Hey, we want to protect the rights of everybody, including atheists"? There's not enough. There needs to be more.
Yeah. I just want to mention this comment real quick. It's from Jesse G. of Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith. God told me versus God told me through the hairdryer. One's accepted and one is seen as crazy. And that's the thing. And it doesn't matter if you say God told me this. It's like accepted as if that's just a normal part of the conversation. Hearing a voice is fine as long as you claim it's God and it doesn't come from something else.
It's an appeal to authority, an imaginary authority, but it's still an appeal to authority. In other words, they're qualifying their statement with, "Hey, this isn't me saying this; it's God."
And to continue on, it was Sam Harris who said, "I fail to see how the introduction of a hairdryer makes it any less insane." Something to that effect.
It's like Rick from Walking Dead with the telephone.
That might be funny if I'd seen the show.
Oh, you don't watch Walking Dead. That's
we could get off track on that.
Yeah, that's. But as far as like a war on Christmas, as far as like me as an atheist wanting to go down into your home, tear down your Christmas tree, and piss on it or whatever, this extreme view. It's like war on Christmas. I picture people with M16s, guns going around. going into people's homes like the Gestapo, and like if they have a Christmas tree, they take the parents off the prison, send the children into to re-education camps. I mean, that's what they're trying to portray. People like Brian Fisher and the AFA,
Right.
and they put that image out there that that's what we want. No. I don't care what you do in your home. I'm not trying to destroy the holiday. I still celebrate Christmas with my family as an atheist.
It's
Come
brilliant
on.
political theater. It's brilliant political theater to try and put Christians in the role of victims and martyrs. I mean, they've had 2,000 years of experience with martyr politics. I mean, you talk about Jesus and being a martyr, and let's look down the lines here about martyrdom, Christians as victims, and in this particular case, what's required is to show that Christians are not the martyrs here; they're the aggressor.
Absolutely.
And in this case, they're aggressively trampling on the rights of other people. And I think that's what's critical when we're interfacing with the media, when we're talking to the press about if you're involved in groups, local groups, and you talk to the media, to point out, look, we're here to help everybody. We're not here to claim special rights, or even when you say, well, we're claiming equal rights, people look at that askance sometimes and say, well, I don't see why you don't have equal rights. So it doesn't help the conversation. What helps the conversation is to show, no, look, this protects Muslims, Buddhists, Hindu, anybody who is not Christian. This protects them.
But that's often looking down on by the Christians who are trying to impose their theocracy. Like with prayer in school, if all of a sudden their kid come home and says that, oh hey, we were praying to Mecca, how fast would prayer in school be out of schools again?
Yeah, I think if there is a war on Christmas, so to speak, or a war over Christmas, I guess you could say, there's probably two aspects that I would point out. I am absolutely at war with ignorance and bigotry and oppression that is used by religious people for all other types of faith and gay people and women's rights. I am absolutely at war with that. So, yes, I'm at war with that. The other aspect of this war that I think might be there, is there, is like we have been saying, is the oppressor playing the victim role. They are trying to assert special privilege over the rest of the population and assert it as if it was their own right, their freedom of religion. But they don't realize, they've had the majority for so long that they've had this special privilege, and we're just saying, no. If anything, we're backing them off of their special privilege that they've gotten accustomed to. I mean, like the Jon Stewart clip, Christmas is so pervasive. I think, would you guys all agree that you in some way celebrate Christmas, even not in the religious sort of sense? I mean, it's really a secular holiday when it comes from the Christmas tree, the Yule log, the wreaths, the getting together with family, the winter solstice. All of these things are really traditions that Christianity hijacked in the first place.
Absolutely.
Which I think
it's funny.
The second hour. Go ahead. Sorry, Brian.
No worries. I'm sorry. I was just saying that actually it's funny here because there seems to be a common theme when we talk about Christians exerting privilege, and that is those things that they want to inject into the public space and become normalized are then instantly claimed to be secularized. Christmas is a religious holiday. There is a version of Christmas that has been claimed as secular by the government in order to make it the only religious government holiday. So at this point in time, we do accept, and there's so much that has gone into Christmas, the Christian holiday Christmas, that has been stolen from other religions. It's very easy to say, well, it's a secular holiday too. But most of the aspects of Christmas are ripped from one religion or another, whether it's Christianity or various pagan faiths or whatever. It is a religious holiday. Now, many of us like some of the themes of Christmas and celebrate those themes, things like family and friendship and all this gift giving and all
Hope
those
for the
things.
future.
The hope for the future. Because there's a lot of positive themes in it, but it makes it no less a religious holiday. And so I don't think it should continue to be a government holiday, but I don't expect that to change anytime in the near future. But what I do expect is that while it is a government-promoted holiday, that the themes involved in the government promotion should not be religious themes. And so a lot of the court cases have come out to, well, as long as you've got a Santa and a Yule log and a Christmas tree, you can get away with a few religious things. As long as there's some variety, maybe you'll throw up a menorah too and some other things. And sometimes they can get away with that. But
they complain about this stuff like as if we're trying to destroy their ability to practice their religion, their ability to practice their faith. They have their churches, they have their homes, they have their television stations, their radio stations. They have the public square when they need it. They can go out and express themselves wherever they want to with freedom of speech. We're just saying that the only thing you can't do is use government to express your religion. That's it. That's all that we're saying. We're not saying you have to shut up in the public square. You can't go out and proselytize. You can't go out and preach. You can't go out and express your faith. You're not allowed to have Christmas lights at your house, on your lawn. No. All we're saying is you can do all those things, but you can't use government to benefit your religion. To endorse your religion. That's it. That's all it is.
By the way, for Lee Lemon, Easter is celebrated on a Sunday and isn't really recognized by the federal government because they're not open on Sunday anyway, which is another religious thing, but let's not get into that today.
The blue laws in Pennsylvania can't go out and buy some Jack Daniels on a Sunday. That stinks.
Right.
I hate that. We need to change that. That's one of the things that you guys need to take on. Blue laws, and as far as liquor is concerned, because God damn it, I need my liquor on a Sunday.
The ACLU has gotten involved in things like that in the past, and then of course you've got, it's not just the liquor laws in Pennsylvania, but off on another people angle, it's also the monopolization of liquor by the state, which is a big pain in the butt.
What are your takes? Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, why do Christians not get super pissed at like all of these stores and stuff for totally like commodifying their religious holiday and like turning it into this free-for-all just money crapshoot? I mean, this whole Black Friday thing is just all about the end of the fiscal year, these stores to try to use this spirit of the season to get back in the black. Why are they not pissed about that? Seems like an assault on their religion. Because,
well, there are some that are. There's a lot of more conservative fundamentalist churches that don't like the commercialization. They look at all the sales and stuff like that as anti-Christian. So I don't think it'd be fair to say that all of them, or that there aren't some that are upset about that.
Right. But I didn't mean it as a universal statement, but yeah, go ahead.
But there are some that aren't, and I think that the ones that aren't, at least on some level, recognize a very simple principle, and that is, if you can get Christmas when everybody's saying Christmas, that itself helps spread this idea. It puts a fun face on Christianity. It's good PR for Christianity. So sure. Whether intentionally or on a subconscious level, I think that a lot of people just think, well, as long as Christianity is out there, maybe it'll pull. When I was a Christian, Tim, you may remember the idea of a Christmas and Easter Christian,
yes.
A C&E Christian. There are a lot of the more devout Christians who look down on people like that. But there are just as many preachers out there who look at people who celebrate Christmas and Easter and say, well, at least they're trying, and maybe we'll get them at a later date.
My dad would actually preach sermons about that on people, because people would come to his church on the Christmas just because it was Christmas, and he would actually make a sermon about people that only come to church on Christmas and Easter's and how you're supposed to follow Jesus all year round, and he would tick people off. But I mean, my family is one of those ones. Jesus is the reason for the season. We need to get focused back on the real reason for Christmas, which is not really Jesus anyway, because he wasn't even born on Christmas, according to most historians.
Right.
But, you know, it's so ridiculous. It just becomes this season of hyperbole anymore. That instead of Christmas, it's like hyperbole should be the reason for the season, because that's exactly what we get every Christmas. It's all this garbage about you know, I can't have my way and I can't make government endorse my religion. And that whole Christian nation argument comes up, and we're a Christian nation, of course, comes to play with it, because they feel entitled to say we're exempt as Christians, or like Bill O'Reilly says, Christianity is not a religion, it's a philosophy.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
They feel entitled to because they don't think they qualify under the law as a religion, as far as a separation of church and state, because they think that there's Christianity and there's everybody else. That's their viewpoint.
Well, it gives them a little wiggle room to say, oh, well, this is not a religious thing, and so this is not a church-state issue. This is philosophy. We're just, hey, it's just an idea. Hey, that's all.
But, you know, I mean, the calling it a philosophy instead of a religion, while it's complete bullshit, it's at least slightly more sane than saying it's not a relationship, it's not a religion, it's a relationship.
What other philosophy is there that teaches its followers to drink the blood and eat the flesh of their leader, even if it is ceremoniously?
Well, I do have to clarify a philosophical point here, just because I saw him point that out. And you know, Bill O'Reilly is absolutely 100% correct in that it is a philosophy and a religion. But philosophy is a very big umbrella term that covers a lot of things, including science. You know, science and religion are both a subset of this umbrella term called philosophy. And philosophy is just a way of structuring how we think about things. And so, but, you know, by passing the buck back to philosophy and away from religion, it's obviously a play to try and avoid the government restrictions on government speech and stuff like
well,
that.
I don't
just muddy the debate.
Yeah,
just
but
to muddy the debate.
I don't believe that John Hume died for my sins.
Well, no, that's true, but you know, you could, but that's the thing, you know. John
Friedrich
Hume
Nietzsche is not my Lord and Savior, you know.
Right,
blasphemer.
Right. What all I'm trying to point out is that, you know, yes, there is a class of philosopher that is a reasoning philosopher that one would not try to attach a religion around, but religion itself is just, you know, I was just trying to clarify the term and how things
I got
play
you.
out for the
No,
audience.
I think you were right to a certain extent, because there are elements of Christianity and even Jesus' teachings that are very valid ideas, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
You know, the lessons of forgiveness and mercy and justice and things like that Jesus taught. There's ideas that you can.
I love how Jon Stewart put it when he was talking about this, and he said something about, I can study Jesus' teaching, and I even agree with much of it, but you know, I don't get to go to the after party.
John Gleason is in the chat saying, LOL, philosophy, tax their asses is what I say.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's not a religion, then why are they all not paying taxes?
By the way, I'm sorry for the chat channel. Yeah, I know he said it was only a philosophy. I was only pointing out the relationship between religion and philosophy to the person who was commenting and mentioning that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
And wasn't O'Reilly also saying that, you know, Christianity is a philosophy, but Presbyterianism, Baptist, those are religions?
Yeah, he was saying that.
How does it even make sense?
It's that it was just a way to pass the buck. Honestly, I mean, he was. The religion, it's Christianity. Those things are denominations or sects of that particular religion. There are words out there that already work to describe what he's talking about. He's redefining words to make his argument.
Well, what is it I always say on the show? When you're making up shit to begin with, you can just keep making shit up for any argument. I mean, there's an answer for everything. I mean, that you don't have to follow any set of rules. You can just kind of make these statements without qualifying them because your entire argument is unjustified to begin with.
My mother does that. My mother does that all the time. I talk to her about religion all the time, and I say, I don't like religion. And she comes back to me and says, I don't either. And I say, but you're Christian. You believe in a religion, you know. And she says, I don't have a religion. I have that, and we talked earlier. I have a relationship. It's not my religion. And so sometimes when you're talking to people, it's insane because these words, they have meaning. They have definition. You know, it's not like you can just redefine words to make yourself feel better. They have meaning, and when you redefine them to make your argument, sometimes you're having two completely different conversations. It's absolutely
my dad and I had this conversation once, and he said, "Tim, I have a relationship, not a religion." And I go, "Yes, Dad, but your relationship is with a 2,000-year-old carpenter who died and supposedly rose again, whose blood can heal your eternal soul. That's not like saying I have a relationship with this person or that person.
Yeah.
That's like the person in the insane asylum saying I can talk to aliens. There's really no difference."
I have some images I make on a UAA. There's text reminders, and one of them was touching on that. It's like, remember, Christianity is a religion, and no, you do not have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Even if we assume he existed, you've never met him. You do not have personal relationships with those you've never met in any way. You've only read about him. Saying you've a personal relationship with him is like saying you have one with Harry Potter. To think that, you're either a child, delusional, or insane.
Yeah. You have a personal relationship with Jesus? What's his favorite color?
It's not so far out of the box, though, because these are people who actually believe that they hear, some of them hear voices in their head that they interpret as coming from God. And so for them to say, I have a relationship with Jesus or I have a relationship with God is based on their understanding of a phenomena that they are experiencing in their own head. So it's harder to just say, no, you don't have a relationship with these people sometimes, because they hear the voices, they believe they know what those voices mean, and then all of a sudden now you can redefine the terms and make it fit however you like. And there's no way to convince them otherwise, because there's a level of insanity that is actually there that you can't get past.
Are they really insane, most of them, or are they just deluded? Because I remember being in that spot. But there's a point where you get to where you kind of start to realize, yeah, I'm just kind of talking to myself here. I don't know what makes you realize that, but I know I kind of got there myself, and it was kind of that was because I mean, in your head when you're experiencing all this stuff as a Christian, it's very real to you. You believe that it's real.
Insane is probably too strong of a word. Delusion is a better word.
They have a different classification in the DSM for religious beliefs.
Well, no, it is.
So they don't have to classify it as delusion or psychosis.
I think it's a form of indoctrinated insanity, because you're taught this stuff before you have the ability to think for yourself, so you don't ever question it, especially if you grew up in a religious atmosphere. So there's an element to it that's just kind of just a natural process of how you grew up, who you were around, who influenced you, and the fact that you made. I mean, I think there's people out there that unfortunately will never ever be able to have critical faculties to change their mind just because they're so invested in that belief system, and that's unfortunate.
I think it takes a certain type of experience based on with certain types of information to finally come together with the product of maybe having the ability to change your understanding of the world around you. But I think that's an individual thing, so it's hard to really, you can't really just come up with a program to convince people that you're right. You have to address their own personal experiences on a very direct level.
And following that statement, we're going to go into the break here for about 2.5 minutes. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what is Christmas, the history of Christmas. Let's talk about a little bit about like what are the actual origins of Christmas and the Christian claim to Christmas, and does it have any validity? And we'll go from there.
And if you guys in the chat have some questions for Kat, bring them out because we want to give her the floor some more.
Yeah. All right.
That was special.
Well, before we go into the second hour here, let's take some time to tell us, what you do at We Fucking Love Atheism, and give us a little bit of information about your group and your page and what you guys are up to.
We're just a Facebook page called We Fucking Love Atheism, and we're pretty awesome, and we're a large community of atheists, all kinds of atheists with different opinions on everything.
You guys have really blown up this year. How many likes are you guys up to now?
Over 65,000.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
And
it takes a lot of my time.
You guys have a lot of a group there too, right?
We do have a group, and I also have another Facebook page called We Love Atheism, which is a little more friendly. I wanted to cut it, but I decided to keep it.
Oh, okay.
It amazes me how many people still have a problem with the fucking being in a title, or just curse words in general.
I want to talk to you about that because I get railed all the time when I make this statement, and they go, "That would have been so great. It was a great argument. Well, why did you have to use the F word?" I'm like, "Why do you have to care whether I use the F word?"
Why? I mean, you're right.
I mean, it's just an expression. It's an expletive. It's part of the language. If you're an adult, you should be able to look past that and say, they make this argument that if you use language, coarse language, that you're uneducated, you're uncivilized. I think the immature people are the people who make a big deal about people using adult language or expletives in a discussion or a debate. I think that you can use them without being ad hominem, and they have perfect validity to express or emphasize an emotion or a statement. But people, they hear those words and they go, "Oh, where?"
Yeah, I get that a lot. I do. That's why we created the other page, because I had so many complaints about the fucking in the title. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
You're hurting other atheists by having that name of your page, right?
That's exactly right. We're giving atheists a bad name. I have a lot. Yeah.
Sorry, I spilled some beer.
Those people really annoy me. The you're doing atheism wrong. You're giving atheists a bad name. How? We're being logical. We are expressing our opinions. We're using evidence. Just because we criticize religion, where you want to hold their hands and drink a Coke with them, doesn't mean we're giving us a bad name. It means we're presenting the illogic of religion in general. And the more illogic that is busted, the more logic we bring, the better off we are in general, I believe.
You're offending the true believers, but I guarantee you, because from the perspective of someone who was by myself finding my own way, it is a very empowering thing as a in-the-closet atheist to see someone with the courage to make fun of religion and mock it. And it can sometimes help people who are afraid to step forward, that are locked into these belief systems. I mean, it's like we discussed on here the other night. You need your Malcolm X's, you need your Martin Luther Kings, you need all different perspectives from the atheist community, because they're going to reach different people, speak to different people, and help different people in different ways get on their way there.
I'd like to offer a somewhat but not entirely dissenting opinion, if you guys don't mind.
It's fine.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Only that, I think it's very important, first of all, that we get out there and we do mock religion, that we do what we can to put that information out in the space, out there in the public sphere, and I agree with that. The only thing that I do want to say, though, is that I think it is important for us to consider how we communicate to the public. Only that, I've heard some people say, okay, but I'm communicating, isn't that okay? And I would say, well, yeah, it's good to communicate, but sometimes we do want to make sure that the message we are sending is being understood in the way that we intended to send it. While I...
You mean like the slavery billboard?
Yes, actually, I do actually mean that. And I will be the first one to say, you know, look, we had a message we were intending to send with the slavery billboard. We thought that message was pretty clear on the billboard, but that message got corrupted into something that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And
you don't want the message to be lost in the medium or the mode, I think
exactly.
is what you're saying.
Right.
Ryan, that is exactly what I'm trying to say. And so, you know, in that respect, I would say that you know, I personally learned a lesson about that. You know, that things like irony is lost on people. That sometimes imagery can be too powerful, or so powerful that the message itself is lost because people get hung up on the imagery. So if your goal is to communicate, if your goal is to send a message, you want to make sure that the work that you do works towards that goal and doesn't work against that goal.
I highlighted that's the billboard we were talking about. That was you guys did that against the year of the Bible, right?
Yes.
And it was just a statement to say, hey, slaves obey your masters, Colossians 3:22. But I think what got people pissed was the imagery, right? With the guy with the slave with the hooks on his neck.
Exactly.
And that was in an area where there were a lot of African Americans, if I remember correctly.
It was in Harrisburg, and yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. It was in a city, so we actually had an option of one place we could put it, and we put it that one place we could put it. So, you know.
Now every time you call Lamar Advertising, they kind of cringe, don't they?
Actually, Lamar was not. Lamar was nice and friendly, and they continue to be. I would not say anything negative about Lamar.
Okay.
They did tell us that they would prefer to refund our money rather than put up another copy of it, because they do have a security policy that if you go and you sign a contract with them to put a message up, they're actually responsible for providing security for the sign. So if it is damaged, they have an insurance policy that allows them to replace it. But they wanted to refund our money rather than do that. And there's a long backstory behind what eventually happened.
But I would say, even though that seemed like it got a lot of bad press, I guarantee you that made someone think. Or more than one person.
I agree that it made more than one person think, and I think that there was a positive there. The problem was that there was an organized effort to reframe that billboard's message as one that was racist.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, but that harkens back to what I was saying about you have to be careful about sending the message you intend to send. You can't let your message get reframed, or if your message does get reframed, you have to account for that. You can't just put a message out there however you want to put a message out there and then not take responsibility for trying to get the message sent the way you wanted it to get it.
I think you guys handled it perfectly well, the best way you could have, because it was almost the media was biased against you too. Because I remember that story where the lady was like outside by the billboard, basically, and other, you know, she didn't say it directly, but she was kind of like hinting, you know, hey, if someone comes down here and tears down this billboard, it won't be a bad thing. Wink,
or they
wink.
wouldn't be surprised. I mean, yeah, they stopped short of any kind of actionable comments there, but yeah, there was definitely an implication that yeah, we think this is going to get pulled down. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And it did. It was up for all of less than 24 hours before it was vandalized and tore down. And what was really funny, and I found this funny at the time, is that the part that they ripped off, if you're looking at the billboard, was the portion that had anything to do with the lesson. Everything from the lesson in Bronze Age ethics down was torn off.
But they left the slave picture up.
They left the biblical quote and the reference, and that was it.
Wow.
Now, I admit that what they left was because that was what they could reach.
Yeah.
So,
but it just makes it funny because it almost makes it seem like they were endorsing the scripture
Absolutely.
to have slaves. They just didn't like the imagery
It
attached.
just made it worse.
Right.
Yeah, those verses were the verses that were used to justify slavery by the slaveholders in the South, and their theological argument was, in my opinion, sound.
Right.
If you're going by the Bible.
I agree. And there is so, and the point of the billboard was to point out the inherent wrongness of government endorsing the Bible as a whole. Look, if you're going to find a secular purpose in the Bible or some other document, and you're going to say, well, I have a secular purpose for pointing that out because it has good messages for humanity, or however they want to present it. But to say the Bible is wrong, and there's so much in the Bible that is actually horrible for humanity, that the idea that they would promote that is outrageous. It's outrageous that they would promote a book that promotes slavery. It's outrageous they would promote a book that promotes rape and the mistreatment of women, and all those other horrible things. The divisiveness and all of those other horrible things that are in the Bible, and we wanted to make that point, and that was our original intention.
Brian, you're just taking it out of context.
We got that thrown at us because I will admit that there are a couple places in the Bible actually where it says slaves obey your masters, and if you look up Colossians, I will be the first one to admit that the reference in Colossians isn't actually, if you take it in context, it isn't actually saying what we intended to say. But there's a reference in Timothy, and maybe Tim can help me out with this. I know he's got the
one that tells the slaves to obey the masters, even the ones that abuse them.
Yeah, they're Christian masters who abuse them.
Yes.
That is far more blatant. That essentially is the same quote, but you have to, when you put it in context, it means what we're talking about. And so there is that too, but still, I mean, come on. The Bible is not a nice, friendly book. It is not the book that everybody looks at it to be. And
absolutely not.
So,
even the story of Christmas itself, and going back to bring us back on the topic here, a biblical reference in Isaiah of the virgin birth, and the story of the virgin birth in the New Testament, that was filled in later as a part of a mistranslation of the original word in the Hebrew, which was Alma, which only meant young woman, not virgin. So Christians themselves, within the Bible, have taken their own scriptures out of context and created complete fictions based on mistranslations and misunderstandings and taking things out of context. So not only are we guilty, I mean, sometimes we are guilty of as atheists, but it's in the Bible too, because it's just some book thrown together by all these guys that didn't know any better. There are a bunch of misogynist sheep herders, and that's where we get all this stuff from. But they're not even accurate historically on their own story when it comes to Christmas, and then they make this claim that says this is our holiday when the day itself is taken from other religions. The traditions, like all the traditions except for the nativity, are borrowed from pagan culture. So where do they get this gall to say Jesus is the reason for the season? It's the only reason for the season, and this is a Christian holiday, and everybody else is just is full of shit, or they're
anybody celebrate Saturnalia?
Yes.
Just curious.
Arbitrarily, yes.
I think there's an attack on that holiday. They're excluding it from public debate. They're not letting me do my thing.
You tell them.
It's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Axial tilt is the reason for the season, right?
It's funny. I spent some time after I decided that Christianity was not right for me. I spent some time as a pagan, And so I learned these arguments from the pagan standpoint, saying, yes, Christianity stole a lot from paganism. Well, they stole a lot from the indigenous religions of various cultures. But because paganism is just a blanket
big
term.
umbrella.
Umbrella term. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, so I learned all these arguments then, and it was very funny. Pagans take it rather personally, even though neo-paganism has almost no connection to the actual historical religions that they borrow from. Mm-hmm. But it's still very funny.
Well, the Christmas tree, the bringing it goes back to the it brings it back. The Christmas tree itself was like the tree. They bring a bough from the woods into their house to appease their gods or whatever, right. or thank as a sign of thankfulness to the gods. They're pagan gods, of course, right. and this is all stuff that has incorporated itself into the Christian tradition, where they think. I mean, my mom, for instance, doesn't even realize that much of this stuff is. And when I brought it up to her, like I said earlier in the last hour, last Christmas, she had a fit. I was just telling her the actual history of the Christmas tree, and that there's actually a Bible and scripture in Jeremiah, which is kind of taken out of context a little bit, where it says, you shall not be like those who drag the trees from the woods and put, into their house and put the lights on, the silver and the gold. It's basically talking about you shall not be like these pagans who drag trees into their house and decorate them, and that's exactly what Christians do. Oops, yeah.
So, Tim, maybe we could go to one of those videos, and I wanted to touch on some things. We're getting a little bit of noise, somebody. But I wanted to touch on a couple things in the chat room here. Tom Vile is asking, does Brian have a Facebook page? And the answer to that is yes. You can find Brian's Facebook page at facebook.com/Pennsylvania Nonbelievers. And you can also find him at PANONbelievers.org. So PANonbelievers.org is where you can find Brian's stuff there. And I wanted to also give out a shout to a few people in the chat room. We got Kawaii Skeptic says he, I'm not sure, Kawaii, right on, good to see you, bro. So they found the show from Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith and United Atheists of America. Yeah, I'm a fellow islander, or I used to be before I came back to the mainland. But we also had Stephen from Religion Poisons Everything in the chat room, and Jesse's in there from Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith. So wanted to give that shout out. And the last thing is, if anybody in the chat room has some questions for Kat, let them fly, guys. We gotta get her. We gotta get her talking here. We gotta get her talking.
Well, Kat, do you have any points you want to make? We could give you the floor. I mean, do you have any thoughts on all this?
Thanks for just throwing me out there and putting me on the floor.
That's how we work.
That's how we roll.
Cat
Everybody
meat bus.
stare at her
Yeah.
No, we can actually get. I think. Well, no, we can transition this from. I think we talked a lot about Christmas and the war on Christmas, but I think underneath all of this connects itself to a bigger agenda as far as the theocrats are concerned. The Christian nation people, the people who feel the need to assert Christianity as the dominant religion in not only government but every part of society, based on this dominionist kind of belief. And I'll just play this video from Sean Faircloth, and we'll discuss it afterwards.
The Secularists is a chapter that's in contrast to the chapter The Theocrats, because I had the Fundamentalist 50 in the Theocrats chapter, and unfortunately in the chapter The Secularists we can to date tout only one member of the United States Congress that is openly secular. And that's a real concern to me because, you know, last I checked there was this guy Brad Pitt who goes down to New Orleans long after the floods have been over. multimillionaire, goes down there and helps build houses for people and has been doing it for years now, helping his fellow citizens. And he very casually says, geez, because the people put up signs in New Orleans and say, "Run Brad Pitt for mayor of New Orleans." And Brad Pitt said, "Well, I don't know if I can run because I'm an atheist." Well, to me, what he is a decent, honorable man, a kind-hearted man. And he's American. He's part of the American tradition. George Clooney, who's really worked very intelligently and well to help people in Somalia and desperate parts of the world, in Darfur, really done great public service that he doesn't have to offer, is another secular American. Bill Gates, a secular American. Whatever you say about Bill Gates, maybe you like Apple better than you like PC, I don't know. But whatever you say about Bill Gates, he's not a radical. He's a decent guy who's put millions, billions into helping people throughout the world in very specific and pragmatic ways. And when Bill Gates, like Richard Dawkins, who's raised so much money for charity, when they give their money, it actually goes to helping people. When tax-deductible dollars, thus your tax subsidy, goes to religious organizations, they take a cut off the top, maybe to enrich the pastor, maybe to proselytize to poor people. There was a situation in Africa where a person was in a very desperate health situation, and a religious organization said, "Well, we're going to treat you, but first we want to talk to you about our view of Jesus." That, to me, is immoral. What's much more moral is a secular approach where every charitable dime and every charitable viewpoint goes to actually helping the people who need help. But yet all of these good people, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Angelina Jolie, all these folks are represented by only one member of the United States Congress. Well, I think they're honorable people, and they deserve more representation than that. We thank the member of Congress, Pete Stark, who has come out as a secular American. He's a great guy. But we need more who are willing to come out, run for office, speak out. And that's something that I do in this book, and something that I do when I speak around the country, is encourage people, as I did, to run for public office and help change America. Because I'm very optimistic that most of us do have secular values when we really sit down and think about it, and that we can elect people to public office if we're not afraid to speak out and stand up for the patriotic values that we really believe in.
Brian, on this, if you remember at the conference, there was a talk of they had the secular coalition there, and I don't think this is an issue that really necessarily is just atheists, because there are a lot of people that are in the theist community, and that realize this is going on. The problem we have is that we're outnumbered as far as the politicians are concerned, and we have a few people that are willing to stand up and say things, but I think, at least this is my view, there's a lot more atheists that are in the closet than I think that are outspoken. Do you get that sense?
Well, before I answer, does Kat want to take it?
Okay.
Stop throwing me under the bus. No, I'll go after.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go first, or whatever.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Well, let's see. The question was restate the question, because I.
Do you think that we have a problem with representation in politics and in popular culture? Well, and do you think that there are actually more atheists in the closet? Because I think that's true from personal experience and different things, than there are that are outspoken and are afraid because of this kind of appearance of the fact that we're outnumbered.
I think that most people, I think there are far more atheists out there than are willing to admit that they're atheists. I think that most people live their lives as if, even those that call themselves religious, live their lives as if religion doesn't matter to them. That the concept of God doesn't mean anything to them, really. They may even go to the church and sit in the pew Sunday morning, but they really are just there for community or other things, that they don't actually believe in God. But also, I'm glad you brought up the Secular Coalition. I'm one of two co-chairmen for the Secular Coalition for Pennsylvania, so I work pretty closely with the Secular Coalition. And I think they're performing a vital function in not only promoting a secular agenda. I'm working right now on some lobbying projects here in Pennsylvania, but as far as building coalitions in general, look, I wrote an article on this, but in the last election cycle, we saw a Mormon running for president of the United States, and with given the normal constituency of the Republican Party, it's almost unthinkable that would be something that would happen. If you've got especially with the religious component of the party, how could anybody think that a Mormon would be a viable candidate for the Republican Party? But what it is an extension of the moral majority from the 1980s. This concept of forming a big tent and getting people to work together under the Republican Party to accomplish what is essentially fundamentalist right-wing goals. And we need to be doing the same thing. We need to be forming coalitions to be finding our goals and working with even religious groups to implementing those goals, because I can guarantee you that there are plenty of religious groups out there that find common interest with us in protecting things like the separation of church and state. And pushing and a secular government is vital to many of these minority religions surviving. We had a panel at the conference on that it brought some believers in to talk about the separation of church and state. And there's the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, for example. They're big proponents of the separation of church and state because that's how they survive in this country. In other countries, they are the Mormons of Muslim. Okay. And in Muslim countries, they are looked at as heretics, apostates, as something to be ridiculed and even pushed onto the margins of society. But in this country, they can come and they can practice their faith because of the separation of church and state. So they are huge proponents of it. There are plenty of other religious communities here in Pennsylvania and across the country that are very interested in protecting the separation of church and state, and we need to be working with them. We have to be forming coalitions. We have to be working with other people because we do not have the numbers. We depending on the polls you look at, we're anywhere between 5 and 15% of the population of the United States, which is pretty strong numbers. But while Christians are forming big tents and saying, because you're Christian, you belong under our tent, even though you may not subscribe to every single point that we put forward as a platform, come join us, and we'll count you when we talk about fighting against women's rights. We'll count you when we talk about fighting against a secular government. That's that kind of thing. That's the thing we have to be fighting against, and the only way we can fight against it is to form and use coalitions of our own.
Well, these people don't just feel the need to assert themselves into government. They feel that government not associating itself with their religion is the downfall of America. They think that that America is founded on Christian principles, and that if we abandon those principles, that our nation will fall. They actually believe that.
I like to say, name one Christian principle that this country is founded on.
Exactly.
I hear crickets.
Where do you find if we're founded on the Bible? Where in the Bible do you have the outline or the model for a Republican form of government?
Mm-hmm.
Representative republic. You don't. To switch it over back to Kat here, I do have a question for you, Kat, that applies directly to running an atheist page on Facebook in relation to this. We were talking about earlier about how people feel alone and don't speak out about their atheism. How many messages do you get? Because I'm sure you do get them, because we do on our page. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much for what you do. Yeah, go ahead. I mean,
I get a lot of messages like that. Thank you for speaking out. I'm still a closet atheist. I can't even like your page, but I check it daily. I get that a lot.
So people visit your page that don't actually like it. They just come there because if they liked it, someone on their page, their family or friends would see it?
Yeah, they would see it and they would be tipped off and have an argument and be shunned. So,
Well, what I've noticed is a lot of atheists, and do you have this too, where they actually have separate accounts for their atheism and for their family and friends?
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, even outspoken atheists do that too, just to not cause argument with their family, close friends.
My family gets upset with me because I do not. My brother isn't even a friend of mine on Facebook because he doesn't like the fact that I'm so outspoken on my Facebook profile.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I want to jump in there for a second and touch on what Brian was saying, because I think there's also at least one or two important aspects to working with theists that believe in secular government and society, is that, there's a lot of stigma and misunderstanding about atheists, what we believe, disbelieve, our morals, all of these other things. So being able to work with them toward common goals and just communicate with them on a cooperative level on things really helps to dispel some of these myths and build up credibility for the Reason movement and just atheists in general. We're not baby eaters, this sort of thing. That
we're not Satanists.
Yeah, speak for yourself. Right? Okay. I don't need babies. Go ahead, Kyle.
One of the people who was a member in our group actually makes an excellent baby cupcake. But
delicious. Get that recipe.
What I would say to that is that's also why it's important for us. I want to circle back to something I said earlier about making sure we're clear about our message, because that's what allows us to form coalitions. If we represent ourselves honestly and clearly about those things that we care about, I think that there are more than just atheists that share our opinions, and that opens the doors for us to do things like build coalitions.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I think, like Ryan was saying, there is the misunderstanding, I think, a lot of times regarding atheists, especially. It seems to be a common message from the religious, especially the religious right, that we want to, ban religion, we want to destroy religion. And personally, I don't care what a person believes as long as it's not negatively affecting anybody else.
Right.
Yeah. I don't care if you want to worship a rock. I don't care if you want to worship the sun, whatever. And banning it would actually be the worst thing we could ever do, because it would become the subversive counterculture that would rise up to try to take down the main culture again. If it's going to die out, it needs to die out naturally through logic and reason and the spread of evidence and everything else, not because it was forced out of people's lives.
Too often we run into a situation where we let religious people tell the public what we are about, and we've got to take control of that message. We've got to be the ones out there saying what we believe and what we understand, and doing it in a clear and concise way, so that it's not possible for someone to reasonably do that.
Marge Gray Wolf is in the chat saying it also helps to get everyone repeating that message over and over.
I just want to say something what Kyle said about how I agree with.
You're on mute. Or sorry, go ahead.
Am I lagging, or are you lagging?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I think what he said about getting rid of it by force is definitely but because I'm not okay with religion. I do care what people believe, because it does impact culture and society. I do care about people holding these beliefs, and because they will inevitably apply them to the way they live their lives and how they view the world around them. Now, I don't think it's right for me to say that you can't believe something or not, which is why I think that last statement of reason and evidence and facts and knowledge are the way to change the way people think. But I don't think for a minute that we shouldn't concern ourselves with what each other believes in, because what we believe in as individuals does have an impact on our worldview and how we view everything, from how we relate to other people, to how we relate to government, to how we relate to things like global warming and saving the earth and the future of humanity. These are all things that are impacted by these worldviews, and it is important to care about what other people believe and to have debates and go out there and have get the knowledge out there, go out there, challenge other people's ideas. This idea that we should respect each other's beliefs arbitrarily and say that we should not insult or make fun of or criticize each other's beliefs is ridiculous. We should always be out there, and we should be able to separate ourselves, each of us, from a criticism of our belief system and a debate about what we believe in from an attack on us as a person, because it's not. And unfortunately, religious people too many times see criticisms and mockery of their faith as a personal attack on them. And whereas as an atheist, if someone makes fun of atheism, I don't take that personally. I don't think any of you do either.
No.
It's just we have the ability to challenge ideas and think about things differently. And if they can hate the sin and love the sinner, we can hate the belief and love the believer, and they should be totally okay with us doing that, but they're not.
I think there's a clear line of demarcation here, though. I mean, when I talk to Christians about, what the thing, or if we take, for example, abortion, and I talk to a Christian about abortion, and some Christians say, well, I don't think abortion is a good idea. I'm pro-life, or they'll say I'm pro-life, and I will say, okay. First, I would say, what do you think the punishment should be for someone who has an abortion? But beyond that, I say, if you are pro-life personally, that does not necessitate making a law about it. So when I say I think that I'm pro-choice, and what that means for me is, if you're pro-life, don't have an abortion. But you shouldn't be telling this woman over here she can't have an abortion. So I think it comes back to the same thing applies to the religion argument. I don't like religion either. I don't think religious philosophy is a viable philosophy. I don't think that it's reasonable. I don't think it's rational, and I think for those reasons it's a bad thing. But by the same token, I would never want to be in a position to say you can't believe in religion. I would want to convince you to not believe in religion, if that were my standpoint. But I would never want to fight for it to be illegal to believe in a religion, because it would never work, first of all. And second of all, I think it's immoral to tell people what to think and what to believe by law. So
that's the line of demarcation. When you make it necessary by law for them to believe as you believe, that's where you got to draw the line. But that doesn't mean we still can't have debates and we still can't challenge these ideas. The problem what you experience a lot of times on Facebook and other places is they don't want the debate to even happen, and they want to silence us and keep us from being able to challenge their beliefs, period.
Well, the reason I bring this up, the reason I bring the law point up is because when trying to form coalitions from religious people, there is actually people out there who think that atheists are out there to destroy religion using legal or whatever means necessary. So when you're having the discussion, I think it's important to put out there the concept of you can believe whatever you like and I can believe whatever I like. Even though I don't like religion, you have the right to believe it.
Well, I am out to destroy religion. I am, and I think we should be.
Well, I understand that.
But it's the way we do it that matters, I think, is what I'm saying.
Right, and that's what I was trying to say. When you say, I am out to destroy religion, other people hear, you're going to use whatever means you can to do it. So it's very important when you're communicating, and I'm going to go back to why communicating and why choosing how you communicate is important. Because there's subtext that people hear according to whatever their experience is. You're going to talk about religious people sometimes who are looking to stamp out atheism. It happens. Right. So when you're communicating with someone who would use any means to stamp out atheism, and you communicate, I want to stamp out religion, they equate it with, you will use any means you can to stamp out religion. So there's definitely a breakdown in communication here in how you choose to use language and how people choose to understand the language you're using. And I think it's vital that we understand how we communicate and how what we say is heard by other people, and we have to take responsibility for that.
Right. I agree with that. And I just want to touch on what Tim was saying real quick, since that was a direct reply to me from earlier. Sure. I agree with what you were saying there, Tim, and everything you were saying basically falls under the aspect where I said if it's not negatively affecting anybody else. If it's not influencing attempts at passing legislation to follow their beliefs, if it's not hindering equality, if it's not hindering science, whatever, then I really don't care what they want to believe because they're literally keeping it all to themselves. It's not affecting anybody else in any negative way. The problem is most of them can't do that. So I do care about what most people believe because most of them are trying to legislate their beliefs.
And that was my point, that the metaphysical foundations of their belief system will motivate most of them to have some kind of activism to end things that disagree with them and things like that, because they will feel like they have a mandate from God to stamp out what they view as evil and what we represent to them as evil.
Right.
Or
Go out into all the world and all that stuff.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and the whole thing about the Bible, what it says about atheists, the fool says in his heart there is no God. You know, all the places where it demeans us and casts us as fools and pawns of the devil, things like that. That is the problem that we have. I don't think that Christians are bad people. Most of them, I don't. I think that most of them are good people, like myself, who were once deluded by this belief system that has caused them to have these certain viewpoints because they think this guy in the sky is telling them to do it. And as long as you have that, like for abortion, for instance, as long as you have the idea that there's this immortal soul that you have to protect, it's going to give you the moral justification to legislate things that will affect a woman's body because of the belief that you're protecting another human being, and those are the elements of these belief systems that I think are inescapably harmful, and you will never be able to rationalize them or put them in a context where they're not going to affect other people by implementing those beliefs.
I like what Atheism United HQ says in the comments here. Every theist is a possible future atheist. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what we have to remember, is when we're having a conversation with somebody that, you know, we can't just say whatever we like and back off from the responsibility from that. We really have to present our position in a way where they're understanding exactly what it is we're trying to say. That's what I meant from earlier.
Okay.
And I'd like to say something and then ask a question from the chat that's directed to Kat. Excuse me, we talked about how many theists want to stamp out atheism or other religions even, sort of like if you're not for God, you're automatically against God, you're automatically the enemy. They want to legislate it out. Now, I don't know of any atheist, personally, I don't know a single atheist who has ever told me that they tried to make a legitimate argument that they want to legislate away belief. And I think that's largely because we understand that it's impractical. It would be impossible to enforce. We can't do thought police. There's no way you can control what people believe. And so when we talk as atheists, when we talk about trying to get rid of religion, we want to do it through education, through getting people out of their ignorance and bringing them into, understanding, away from this ignorance and bigotry that I think is the true enemy. It's not atheism versus theism. It's rationality and reason versus ignorance and bigotry and oppression. And so our approach is a totally different thing from when theists talk about wanting to get rid of atheism from when atheists talk about wanting to get rid of religion. And it's for different reasons. Because we see the harm that religion does, and really lack of belief in gods, that alone does no harm whatsoever. If you're an asshole on top of that, well, that's a problem for all of us, including other atheists. Lack of belief in gods is not enough. We have to be moral people and just people and care about the others around us and the environment and things if we want to have a truly peaceful world and all those things. But I want to go on to this question that's directed to you, Kat, from I am Wellesley Frazier, I think.
That's Wes. That's Wes, the admin from.
Wes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it going, Wes? He's asking you, Kat, which culture or lifestyle would you see as an atheist's greatest ally?
An ally, like I guess Buddhists. Wouldn't you think so? Is that what you mean?
I think that's probably accurate.
I mean, I think right now, from what I've seen on our wall, mostly is we do get compared to other religions and everything else, we get the more pagans, general pagans, supporting what we're for, and I think that's because just like us, the Christian right especially, that's another one of their prime targets because it's straight up devil worship, where they just assume we secretly worship the devil.
Yeah, sure, a common oppressor.
When I say it's devil worship, I mean that's what they think, not that's what it is.
Or the comment I had the other day that there's no atheist that really doesn't believe in God. They all believe in God. They just deny him.
Yeah.
I think you know what, we see a surprising amount of assistance from, well, not surprising, but from Reformed Judaism.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it Christopher Hitchens that said in the one debate with Rabbi Wolfe that Jews have a gene for atheism.
Right.
I think that's true to a certain extent because even in their beliefs, they're not so rigid. Most of them anymore. They're very secular, very open-minded. They kind of just do it.
I do want to clarify
culture.
Reformed Judaism.
Yes, not Hasidic.
Orthodox and Hasidic Judaism is just as wacky as fundamentalist.
Or Zionist Judaism.
Yeah. Yes. And equally dangerous as well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, talking about a war on Christmas, I mean, the biggest war that's going on right now is over in the Middle East with this constant battle back and forth between who really has possession of the Holy Land or who deserves possession of the Holy Land. And that's where you talk about the harm that religion does and these ideas do. I mean, I was having a debate with a guy the other day who believes that Israel becoming a nation was a fulfillment of prophecy that needed to happen to bring about the end times. And these people with their beliefs about apocalyptic beliefs are in control of government. I mean, when Bush was in office, you had people that believed that they were part of prophecy to help bring about the return of Christ.
Right. Yeah,
and they were in charge of advising Bush on foreign policy.
Right.
Some of these different types of eschatology really freak me the fuck out, guys, because some of these people actually believe that they can force God's hand into returning early. Right. And, some of these people might be the ones with their finger on that red button.
Some of these people, they were during Bush's office. Bush was in office. They were.
If they think... If they think that they can if they think that Jesus will come back in their lifetime or their children's lifetime to begin with, and they think that they can force God's hand into coming back early, and they have the power to bring on mass destruction, that's not a good combination, in my opinion.
During the Cold War, there was a huge idea in fundamentalist circles that it would be the Soviets invading Israel to bring about the end times.
The late great planet Earth.
Yeah.
Hal Lindsey.
And then later, after the Cold War was over, now it's the Palestinian conflict. Maybe that will bring about the end times. But there are people out there crazy enough to want to escalate that conflict to bring about the end of the world.
Sure.
It's terrifying.
Sure.
It is. It is absolutely terrifying.
And it's not just Christians and Jews and just the Palestinian type conflict, and I know Iran is wrapped in with this as well, but there's the whole 12th Imam, the hidden Imam thing that is going on in Islam too, that they have their own type of eschatology that also preaches a type of end time that many Muslims want to bring on too, and they have their own approach to try to get that to happen too. So it really is a battle of these religious ideologies that is very, very dangerous, especially, when you mix Bronze Age mythology with 21st century weaponry, the outcome is not going to be good.
Well, they feel like they have a claim to the land. This is the land of David, the Solomon's temple. This is their heritage. They feel like they have that, and then the Zionists have their own belief on that, and then the Christians kind of pile on top of that with their own belief that this is all part of prophecy to bring about the return of Christ, the rebuilding of the temple. I mean, there are people that are actually trying to lobby that they want the Jews to go in and kick the Muslims out and rebuild the temple because they believe that is part of the prophecy that will bring about Jesus' return. Yes. They don't care the fact that if the Jews actually did that, there would be so outrage within the Muslim world that it might spark a huge war and conflict that we would get involved with, and a lot of people would die and get hurt. But no, all this takes a backseat to,
which would bring Jesus back
they
anyway.
would welcome. They would welcome it. They would welcome the resulting war from rebuilding the temple, because that would be the signal for the end of the world. If the Muslims got upset about rebuilding the temple, that just plays into that whole narrative.
well, they believe that the Muslims are the descendants of Ishmael, and that the biblical prophecy.
No, the Muslims believe that.
Well, they all believe it. That they believe that there's supposed to be a conflict between the Jews and the sons of Ishmael because of that whole history with Abraham and his maid Hagar having the other child that got sent off. And what was the Bible says they'll be like a donkey or a stubborn ass to the children of Israel or something like that, like kind of like a thorn in their side. That was actually part of biblical prophecy. So they believe that this is all meant to happen and part of the whole game, and they don't see a need to diffuse it. They actually, like you said, they see a need to escalate it because they want it to happen.
And it's this weird, contorted, delusional form of self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, I don't expect that Jesus is going to come back, or the 12th Imam, for fuck's sake, but they're really going to cause some problems.
Yeah, in their belief in it, they're going to make it happen and then say, look, the prophecy happened. Well, yeah, it did, because you made sure it happened. That's not a prophecy coming true. That's you just doing what you want.
Yeah. Like the points in the Bible that it says such and such happened in accordance to fulfill the prophecy. It's like, yeah, you knew this was written, and so you enacted the things to fulfill what was written.
I want to give a shout out to Joel here and say you're welcome. That's what we're here for. Now let's get out and do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
And see, what I don't understand is just how strongly they grasp that, most of the hardcore theist religionists, that this is the end times. They are the last generation. Jesus will return in their times, and every generation has thought that, and it's never happened. But it'll happen this time because I'm alive now, and I believe it.
There was a survey done a few years back, and I think it was something like 60 or 70% of Americans think that
it's 40 within the next 50 years.
40, yeah, sometime in the next 50 years. Sometime in the next, in their lifetime, 40% of the people in the United States believe that Jesus is going to come back for them.
Yeah, my grandma believed that, and she died of cancer. I mean, she believed that God came to her and told her that she was going to live to see his return, and she struggled with that as she died because she had deluded herself into thinking that that was actually going to happen.
Right.
And so it was confusing to her why God was giving her cancer, and she thought it was just testing her faith, and then it was just brutal to watch someone put themselves through that delusion and how it affected her, and it's sick what it does. It does not only to our culture and our society, but what it does to individuals and how it warps their minds.
Well, yeah, I mean, Christianity is presented as a personal relationship with God. We talked about that, and John in the comments mentioned about when that tie into the personal relationship. Absolutely, it does. That Christians are taught that Jesus was there to save you. God is there for you. So there is definitely this idea that this personal connection that people they reinforce in their own minds, and it works. It works. People get sucked into the delusion of believing that if they believe in the right way, that God will take care of them. The sick part is the converse of that. Not only will God take care of you, but he will punish all the people who disagree with you. Yeah. And that's the sick part.
But that's a paradox within Christianity. How can God punish those who disagree with you or those who do wrong to you and still provide forgiveness to those people? Someone's going to have to lose out.
Right.
So if I could steal the floor, we're running against the clock here, guys. There's a question in the chat that I'd like to pose to everybody on the panel if I could, and then I want to be able to let everybody plug their stuff before we go out with some music for the night. We have Hillian Hero 345 in chat asking, I have a question for everyone. Being a young atheist, what could I do to be a better atheist? Anybody? We can go left to right. Do you have any suggestions, Brian?
Well, first I want to say I wouldn't worry so much about being a better atheist. I would worry about being a good human being. Start there. But by the same token, if you're interested in supporting causes like fighting for the separation of church and state and supporting atheists in general and what atheists generally believe, look for your local grassroots groups, get involved, volunteer, do charity work with your grassroots organizations. Get out there in the public. Don't be in the closet. Let people know who you are, what it is you believe in, because that is really what's most important for us. It's very important that people understand that we are your friends, we are your children, we are your parents, we are your co-workers. So get out there in the public and be obvious about who you are and what you believe.
Yeah. I absolutely second everything you just said, Brian. I would add, personally, I mean, what is a better atheist? I'm not really even sure what that means, really, but, you know, I would say, you know, if you want to be more effective in advocating for these issues, you know, learn about church and state issues. Learn about arguments for and against God's existence, evidence that supports either one. Learn about fallacies and cognitive biases, and just to underscore what Brian said, be a good person. I mean, don't be a dick. I mean, that first and foremost, just don't be a dick. I mean, that you don't believe, great. That's what only thing we can say we have in common as atheists. Other than that, just don't be an asshole, man. You do. Would it be good? Go ahead, Kate. Kat.
Just be a good, kind, moral person at all times. Don't be hostile to them if they come to you with a question or they want to debate you. Just have knowledge of their religion and have knowledge to show them that what is wrong with their religion. You know, that's a better atheist, I think, to be educated and be prepared for anything that might come along. But just let them know you're a good person. We're all good people. You know, most of them are good people. Most atheists are good people. I think everybody's good.
I don't.
Just be good.
I think Bill O'Reilly's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, well, he's not included.
They're all bad.
And I think Brian Fisher needs to, yeah, whatever. I'll say what I think. I don't say what I think needs to happen to him.
I would say pretty much everything that they all said. But also, you said you're a young atheist. I don't know how young, but I assume you're either in like high school or college or whatnot. And you join secular groups or atheist groups at your school. If there's not one, try to start one. You know, you might be the voice that other people hear that gets more people to come out, and spread that we're all just people. It's like the LGBT community gained more and more acceptance because people realized, oh, hey, they're just people. They're not some mysterious other that are demonic and villains. It's just regular people. And until more people know that atheists are that they're just people, they're going to keep being ostracized and keep being vilified. So just, along with not being a dick, just be open about it and keep learning. Read everything you can and learn about the religion as well as science and everything else. Don't just read to confirm your own beliefs.
Absolutely.
I think I would say just be who you are and always be open to learn about new ideas and let that knowledge impact you as you learn it and incorporate it into your life, and then you will eventually become a better person. Worrying about being a better person constantly is no different than when I was in religion and you're constantly worrying about being saved. I think it's kind of an arbitrary kind of belief that you need some kind of redemption as a person when you don't. You're only able to do what you're able to do because of who you are, where you come from, but the willingness to be able to accept or learn is what makes you a better person. And you will always look back on your life from where you are now and realize that you weren't where you are now then, and that's a good thing. I think it was Muhammad Ali that said, if a man who gets to the age of 40 or whatever, or 50, and still believes what he did when he was 30 or 20, wasted 20 years of his life.
Always keep growing as a person, always.
And whether whatever you believe, if you do that, that's part of what brought many of us from belief to non-belief, was just getting that information, that knowledge. But that didn't make us a bad person at that point in our life because we believed something differently. What would make you a bad person would be is if you knew better and did it anyway. And I think in that context, a lot of people that are religious aren't bad people. They're only doing what they think is right and what they believe is right. Their ignorance of science and different things like that is affecting how they view the world, and we can't judge them for that to the point where we think that they're just evil, bad people innately. We have to look we could just be just like they were, and many of us were like they were, and what made the difference? Knowledge, education.
Yeah.
And
Most
that's
of them
where
are
the key is.
ignorant of their own religion even. They don't even know what's in the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people do you see that they became atheists because they actually finally read the Bible?
Read the Bible
After
and be an
believing in it
atheist.
for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're a little over here, so go ahead and take us out, and then I'll play the music, Ryan.
Yeah, and we got a couple people asking in the chat room if we're going to have an after show, and I'd like to ask you, Brian and Kat. Well, first of all, thank you all for joining us this evening. Are you guys willing to hang out a little bit for after the show for some guests to come
for
in?
just a little while, yeah. My son, I have to take him and put him to bed.
Okay, and so viewers, go ahead and check the image that you found the show on, and just in a few minutes I'll be adding the link in there so you'll be able to join us here in the chat. We hope you can come back with us. Brian, if you would go first, and then Kat, and then Kyle, all of it, go down the line. Just let us plug your stuff. Let us know where you're from, where people can find you.
Well, I'm president of Pennsylvania Nonbelievers. You can find the Pennsylvania Nonbelievers website at panonbelievers.org. You can also find us on Facebook under Pennsylvania Nonbelievers. It's all spelled out with no special characters or anything like that. I'm also on Facebook. You can catch me there anytime. I'm also co-chair for the Secular Coalition for Pennsylvania, and there is a Secular Coalition for Pennsylvania Facebook page. If you're in Pennsylvania and you're listening and you haven't dropped by there already, please do. We need all the support we can get. You can also go out to secular.org and sign up for their email alerts. I don't care where you are in the country. If you haven't done that already, you should do that. So drop by their page and sign up for their email alerts. That way, the state groups, the new state groups, are really trying to be able to get in touch with the state legislators as well as the national legislators. And if we know who you are, then we can get in touch with you. So please do that.
You can find me at We Fucking Love Atheism on Facebook. Just come there and find me. I have a lot more to say on there than I do tonight. But yeah, just come. We fucking love atheism. For atheists, by atheists.
You can find me on United Atheists of America, facebook.com/WeAreUAA. Don't let the name fool you. It doesn't matter if you live in the U.S. or not. You can come from anywhere.
Shit. I just spilled beer.
On that note, take us out.
Anyway, we'll keep you updated. We might be doing another midweek show, but we'll have to play that by ear. But we'll definitely be back next Saturday at same time, same bat channel, and let's go out with some John Lennon.